Broadcast is sponsored in part by Met Pre-K and Smart Start. A WBTV On Your Side special. Lessons learned, lessons lost.
Right now, a pop quiz for the Carolinas, presented by COVID-19.
I do not make this decision lightly.
Schools closed indefinitely, leaving parents scrambling. Classrooms moved out of school, threatening to widen the digital divide.
When a student can't get to the library or a community center, then we really understand how critical this access issue is.
And how do we make sure they continue to learn?
How are they going to stay afloat and not just completely drown and academically fail a grade?
It's left many of you with questions. What's next?
It's going to be very, very challenging.
What will graduation look like?
This is one of the first important milestones in a child's life, a family's life. For some, this could be the first generation of some students.
I want to walk the stage.
And what about college?
Being online, I feel like I just get so overwhelmed with all the work because it seems like it's just piling up and piling up.
All of these questions we hope to answer for you in this special report, Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost. We want to get you prepared with the latest information on what concerns you most, your child's education. Thanks for joining us. I'm Jamie Bowl. We will cover a wide range of topics and ask those who are making the decisions. And many of these questions, in fact, have been the ones that you have been asking us to get the answers to. What will school be like in the fall? What about the students who don't have reliable internet access? Will that widen the digital divide? And what will social distancing look like in schools? The last couple of months have been especially difficult for parents who have had to transform their homes into classrooms, right? Math in the living room, science in the kitchen, history on the porch. When the decision came down, it left many of you scrambling, changing hats from employee to parent to teacher.
Unfortunately, I still have the pleasure of working, and so I can't always be readily available to police them. So that's been probably the toughest part.
Yeah, so what happens next school year? There's still no firm answer. CMS, the state's second largest school district, says the only thing decided so far is buildings won't open during the summer for in-person instruction. Now, we just found out yesterday South Carolina schools are getting draft recommendations for summer learning this week. And then the state will shift its eyes to what the fall might look like. Now, spending his senior year at home isn't exactly what Daquan Redfern had in mind. Known many kids this time of year. He's made the best of the situation, and that is one of the many reasons you could consider him a super senior. WBTV's Dedrick Russell spoke to him about what his last year in high school has been like.
In class, Daquan Redfern would dream of walking across the stage, shaking his principal's hand to get his high school diploma.
In math class, like, oh man, wait till I get this cap and gown and this diploma, you can't tell me anything.
How he dreamed it would be soon became a nightmare, thanks to COVID-19.
I'm kind of disappointed about the situation.
Despite the disappointment, this Harding University High School senior, captain of the boys' tennis team and student leader, is still coming out on top.
Growing up, it's just been hard overall, of course. It's just growing up in a family that wasn't financial, that didn't have income, growing up in a family where someone never went to college or graduated college.
He is proud he will be the first to go to college in his family. Daquan works 2 jobs to survive. We caught up with him at one of his jobs. He decided to attend North Carolina Central University in the fall after being accepted to 22 colleges. He will major in elementary education and minor in communications. He wants to make a difference.
A lot of students may not have technology or that role model that they need in order to become better than what they currently are.
This senior says this pandemic taught him not to take anything for granted and don't let a virus get in the way.
When I go into college, I want to excel. Like I want to go hard. Like I want to show everybody that did not set me back. Like I may have lost a lot of information I was supposed to possess, but that didn't hold me back.
This determined senior believes his philosophy in life works, and he says it works even better when it's put to the test.
I believe hard work have hard work outcomes. So I feel like as long as you're working hard, you're going to be the best that you can ever be. And I feel like if you can't handle my worst, you can't handle my best.
In Charlotte,
make some noise, class of 2020.
Dedrick Russell, WBTV, on your side.
Daquan's amazing. He's in a good spot academically. You heard Dedrick mention he is the first in his family to go to college. And that is the goal for a lot of families. But some are still waiting to see how this year will be graded. It's a real concern. How do we even know a student is learning when they've never done a virtual class and their teacher has never taught virtually? The state trying to take that into account with a new grading system. So let's break down how it will work. We'll begin with elementary school for you here. There will not be final grades. Instead, teachers will provide parents with written end-of-year feedback. So what will that feedback look like? Well, I asked Sneha Shah Coltrane, the director of North Carolina's Division of Advanced Learning and Gifted Education. She is the person who designed this entire system.
So the idea is that teachers include academic challenges as well as strengths, but also any social and emotional strengths and needs that a student may have to really support the transition of our youngest students into the next grade level. That's going to be so important when we reopen our schools in the fall to make sure the next year's teachers have a better understanding of where the student was academically, but also social and emotional.
All right, so next up, let's talk middle school. Students will receive either a pass or a withdraw for all of their courses. A pass is given to a student who was meeting expectations before the transition to remote learning back on March 13th. It's also given to a student who worked to improve to the point of passing after the switch. Important here to note, though, a withdraw is not a fail. It also does not mean that a student needs to repeat a course. It simply means there is a lack of evidence that they have mastered that subject. Another thing to know here, if a middle schooler is taking high school level courses, they will have the same grading options as a high school student. All right, so what are the high school grading options? There are a few choices here. Students can choose to have a pass or no credit, or they can ask for a numeric grade. They will be contacted by the end of May about how they'd like to be graded. For a pass or no credits, it will not affect their GPA. Semester 1 grades, though, will remain intact and count towards GPA. Opting for numeric grades is really only advised if they will improve your grade point average. Now, as for seniors, if they were failing as of March 13th, they will receive a pass or withdraw grade for spring semester courses. If they had a failing grade, districts will provide remote learning opportunities to help them pass. It's strictly, especially when it comes to GPAs, because they're so important. Here's Coltrane's take. So are there options here? Is that what we're saying?
Absolutely. We have provided options for students in grades 9 through 11, where students can either receive a numeric grade like they usually do if they feel like they have been able to continue to access the learning, they're able to do that. Or if they feel like their learning has not been able to progress as well in this home environment, because you have siblings running around, you have your parents doing all sorts of things, or maybe they didn't have the access to a device, that then they could choose a pass. We've actually created 2 new grades that are pandemic specific, a PC-19 and a WC-19, and that W is to withdraw. Because in 9/11, the State Board of Education's intent is that no student fail a course, but then be given the opportunity to retake a course if needed.
Such a unique situation. Coltrane says the point is to make sure our students succeed. It was the whole idea behind this grading system as she designed it. I asked her more about that entire process and what we can expect school to look like in the fall.
So when this process came up where you had to create this system, what kinds of things did you have to put into place? What were you thinking about?
Sure. I mean, COVID-19 has really made all of us think differently about schools. And so when it comes to grading, we really had to think about what were the future needs, but also what were the most immediate needs. for grading in light of COVID-19 issues of equity, as well as helping to ensure all of our students can still move forward, but also to understand all of their home environments may be a little different.
I know you're already thinking about next year. What might schools look like? Do we think we're going to be open? And then are you going to take what you've learned this year and just have plan Bs in place already? How might this look?
Our hopes is that we are back in school in the fall and in school buildings. But let's say over the course of the year, we may have some challenges due to COVID-19 and this pandemic, which is so uncertain, that I believe very strongly that our school districts and charters are working incredibly diligently to be prepared, having learned from this emergency time period to really prepare for the fall. All of our public schools are working on remote instruction plans to be prepared, and we all are trying to determine operational options that, of course, will all be based on public health.
It was bizarre, certainly how fast everything unfolded. If you have a summer now to prepare, if there's one or two things that you would like to improve upon as we perhaps move into having to do this again at another time, what would those things be? What are the things you really want to tackle right now?
I think we want to tackle both issues of equity as well as excellence. We want to improve on the digital divide to really support broadband access and access to devices in case we do have to go more remote, and also to our offline resources, how to bring the quality up of both the online and offline resources and instruction. So a lot of our teachers have been working on professional development because they too haven't been necessarily focused on teaching over a device like this.
It's been a challenging time, and it was a reminder of how important teachers are in our lives. Certainly lots of parents can relate to that right now. Sneha Shah Coltrane, we appreciate you making time.
And much more on that digital divide coming up. In the meantime, South Carolina's Accelerate Ed Task Force is working on its plan for summer schools there. The summer school program would be for students in kindergarten through third. The big issue to tackle, what needs to happen to bring students back for in-person learning. Now, some of the recommendations include bringing nurses into every school, more funding for cleaning supplies, and spending $2,500 per student on things like transportation and camp. Superintendent Molly Spearman says she is heading to the Senate soon to ask for more funding.
I feel confident that if I can give them some better information and help them with the confidence that we can make this happen this summer, that they're going to do everything they can to up that amount.
Some are a bit of a test run here. The plans used for the summer school program will also be applied to the fall semester. Task force members believe the best way to know they are prepared for the fall will be a smooth summer school. Coming up next on Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost. For college and high school seniors, graduation certainly isn't happening the way they hoped. A look at how they will be celebrating virtually. Welcome back to Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost. It's graduation time, and whether you're in college or high school, it's not quite going as planned. Johnson C. Smith University held its virtual graduation ceremony on May 15th. Students say it was bittersweet. It's a moment they've worked toward for so long. But the silver lining, perhaps, former President Barack Obama was the keynote speaker.
If the world's going to get better, it's going to be up to you. With everything suddenly feeling like it's up for grabs, this is your time to seize the initiative. Nobody can tell you anymore that you should be waiting your turn. Nobody can tell you anymore this is how it's always been done. More than ever, this is your moment.
JCSU was one of 78 historically black colleges and universities that participated in a virtual commencement ceremony called Show Me Your Walk with the former president. There were also appearances from Kevin Hart, Anthony Hamilton, and some other big names. Now, as for high schoolers, beginning this week, nearly 10,000 CMS seniors would have been walking across the stage, turning the tassel and tossing up that graduation cap. And for every student, there's family and friends to celebrate all of that hard work. CMS says it anticipated more than 102,000 guests for those ceremonies. That's more than the entire capacity of Bank of America Stadium. Think about it. But there won't be any arenas or auditoriums to fill. All of those celebrations will have to be done from home. With social distancing requirements in effect, CMS says it simply can't have crowds of people in a single space. So it has decided to pre-record virtual graduations. Now, the dates for those ceremonies, that's still being decided, but we do know they will have all the features of a traditional ceremony: speeches, a valedictorian, a salutatorian, senior class representative, and a reading of every graduate's name with their photo. Students and families can watch the ceremony from home, then they can go receive their diplomas at a drive-through ceremony. Now, the problem here, not everyone has access to a computer or transportation.
There's a lot of barriers. So I understand, like with the drive-through situation, a lot of people may not have the transportation to get there.
And that brings in this issue of the digital divide, something we are going to be diving into here in just a moment. But right now, we're asking, what can our seniors do? They're not graduating the way they'd like. Certainly college plans have been switched up, and that is concerning state leaders. WBTV education reporter Chandler Morgan explains why they're worried about a chain reaction that could be coming.
We're spreading the message. Do not put off your next steps.
North Carolina Superintendent Mark Johnson says state leaders are concerned that seniors from the graduating class of 2020 might put a pause on their next steps in life due to the COVID-19 pandemic.
There is still federal aid that can help you pay for college or community college or training for skills.
Johnson says it's okay for plans to change, but he doesn't want to see new graduates put the brakes on their future.
They might not want to go to the four-year college. They might decide to start at community college.
That's one change Johnson says he's heard a lot. Many students question if they want to spend the tuition at a four-year university, which might carry more online instruction than they originally thought they'd get.
Getting some training, but whatever they decide to ultimately do, they should start now.
An important message. Now, making some of these big decisions is really hard right now. For example, getting a feel for a campus isn't as simple as just popping by for a tour anymore. So what are your options? We looked into the way 5 schools are handling this right now. If you're thinking about becoming a Tar Heel, UNC Chapel Hill is offering virtual visits only. There is a video tour on its website, or you can register to speak with students and a member of the admissions team. The university says it hopes to resume in-person visits beginning July 1st. UNC Charlotte is offering virtual live information sessions on Zoom. You can submit questions, get tours of housing and campus areas, and listen in on student panels. You do not need to register. You just need to hop on to the Zoom link on the school's website. No word yet on when in-person events will resume there. Let's go south. The University of South Carolina has self-guided online tours to give you an idea of life as a Gamecock. There are also virtual information sessions depending on what you're looking for. You can connect with a representative over the phone or by webcam. You do need to register online. Prospective Clemson students on-campus visits suspended until further notice. There are virtual office hours Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. to 4 p.m. Just hop on Zoom to talk with a counselor. You can also register for a virtual visit online. We looked at the registration process, and it appears those visits are available weekdays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. only. And finally, if you're thinking about Appalachian State, everything virtual there as well. You can register for a virtual visit that includes a presentation and a Q&A session with a counselor and a student. There are also options for one-on-one video chats and a virtual lobby with office hours Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. All of those are through Zoom as well. Now, as for returning to school, UNC just announced its fall calendar. Classes in Chapel Hill will start earlier, August 10th. Finals will take place before Thanksgiving. Same thing goes for North Carolina State. The classes again begin August 10th. Now, UNC Charlotte announced a couple weeks ago its fall semester would actually start later on Labor Day, September 7th. Finals would start December 17th. All right, so what about our K through 12 schools? Will they resort back to traditional classroom learning, or will there still be some form of remote learning? We all know the challenges that presented this year. WBTV's education reporter Chandler Morgan asked the state superintendent.
We had to switch to remote learning from 0 to 100% overnight.
North Carolina Superintendent Mark Johnson says the fast-paced transition to remote learning was a reactive response to keep schools on track with their education. That switch immediately put a spotlight on the challenges of remote learning.
We know that what's going on right now is not sustainable, and we are working to make sure that when we come back in the fall, if remote learning is part of the strategy, it's going to be better.
But the potential to get rid of remote learning altogether, Johnson says, not so fast.
You need to have plans for teachers or students who are at risk. That means that there may be students whose parents don't want to send them to the school facility. We'll have to keep remote learning in some form or fashion for those students and any students that need to stay at home.
We did want to know what South Carolina looks like in the fall, what that might be. We did reach out to the state superintendent, Molly Spearman, a week ago and asked her to be a part of tonight's program. That request was rejected, but they did tell us they are trying to figure out what summer instruction looked like before they begin to focus on the fall. So if our kids are able to go back to their school buildings, what will it look like? The dilemma is, how do you practice social distance in a school? Chandler asked Superintendent Johnson what he wants to see.
There was a time before COVID-19 and there will be a time after COVID-19, but there's broad agreement that the safest way to do that is by having a vaccine.
But North Carolina Superintendent Mark Johnson says time is ticking and reopening schools cannot be a waiting game. That's why they're getting their game plan together now for the fall reopening of North Carolina schools.
We have CDC guidance saying you need to check students for symptoms before they go into the school building. That's going to be difficult to do, especially at our large high schools.
Imagine social distancing on a school bus or in a school hallway. Johnson says
it's going to be very, very challenging.
That's why state education leaders are considering all options, like a rotating schedule with specific days, specific grade levels would have traditional on-site learning.
We are looking at one of the options being, do we want to slowly bring in the younger students, because we know we've got to get them back into the classroom, leaving space to deal with the larger high schools and the older students as time progresses.
Johnson says having high schoolers continue with remote learning in the fall is an easier option because older students are more self-dependent.
So we're going to be innovative, but we're going to make sure that we get as many students back into the classroom as possible.
And just today, North Carolina State Board of Education set requirements for remote instruction as we go forward. These requirements are set to address a number of issues related to remote instruction, like broadband access, parental involvement, and attendance. Now, it's important to note these are requirements only, not the actual plans to carry them out. Those plans aren't due until July 20th. Then and only then will they be given to school districts around the state. Coming up on Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost.
It's pretty overwhelming. It's very overwhelming. So, we've been through a lot as a family.
Remote learning is difficult enough, but children with special education needs, it takes a different toll. Welcome back to Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost, a WBTV special report. I'm Jamie Bull. Glad you're with us. In the past half hour, we looked at what school could look like this fall for students of all ages, how to get elementary students to socially distance, and alternatives to college tours for upcoming seniors. We've also examined what role remote learning will take in the future when it comes to education here in the Carolinas. If you missed any of those segments, we are working right now to put those up on our website, WBTV.com. Now we want to shift our focus to a major issue in our community, the digital divide and how it is impacting education. It can be easy for some of us to assume the people around us have the same access to computers and internet as we do. But they don't. For many students, their only access comes when they are in the classroom. When we shifted to remote learning, it left many kids without access to the tools that they really need. Check some of the data out here. CMS says about 3,000 students, 3,000, haven't had any contact with their teachers since all this started. and a lot of it's because they have no internet. And for those who have had contact, teachers can see the difference between students who have the access they need and those who don't.
At Piedmont, I'm watching this divide kind of occur between our students who I know have everything that they could possibly need at home and those that don't.
That is Cecilia Sisu Roberson. She is a math teacher at Piedmont IB Middle. She is also the CMS Teacher of the Year. Roberson says she wants to use her platform to bring more attention to this really important issue. She says she sees that divide every single day.
And as I'm watching some of my students thrive and some of my students not thrive, I know that come August, however we are, I'm going to have students who have had wildly different educational experiences for the past 4 or 5 months. And so how is it that we are going to sort of bridge those gaps and make sure that everybody is able to come together? And I don't know that there is an answer to that right now, but I definitely think that that is something that's going to be our major question going into next year.
Well, we can tell you CMS notices it as well. It's why it's been meeting to try to tackle the issue before students get too far behind. WBTV's Bria Bell has more.
In our current world, no internet means no class, no school, no learning.
When a student can't get to the library or a community center, then we really understand how critical this access issue is.
The Charlotte Digital Inclusion Alliance also adds that in Mecklenburg County, 19% of homes are without Wi-Fi capability.
However, that's a very, very misleading figure if you consider that there are lots of neighborhoods in Charlotte where that number is 50, 60, 70%.
Meaning there are clusters of have-nots when it comes to internet. Pat Millen's job is to work on getting that 19% down to zero. For now, he says, Charlotte Mecklenburg schools have set up 6,000 mobile hotspots in neighborhoods with 6 months of prepaid internet services.
CMS is working hard to try to make sure that every kid, every family has access.
The lack of internet isn't the only issue some students face at home. Some parents who are trying to fill the role of a teacher at home are struggling to understand the technology students are using. This means if a student needs help, there's no one there who can walk them through what to do.
This is not something that they've been trained for. We haven't been practicing for this moment. You know, you practice for the tornado drill, you practice for the fire drill, but nobody's practiced for this, so it's very new for them.
That's our Bria Bell reporting. Let's take a little closer look again at some of those numbers that Bria mentioned. According to the Charlotte Digital Inclusion Alliance, 84% of people under age 18 have a computer and broadband internet subscription. So that means 16% are without a computer or internet. And when it comes to internet alone, the latest numbers we have here are from 2015, and they come from Digital Charlotte. 21% of Mecklenburg County households at best had dial-up speeds for internet. And here's a map of the broadband deserts here by Digital Charlotte. Check this out. The gray areas represent neighborhoods where fewer than half of households have access to lower broadband speeds. Apologize, I don't have the map for you, but follow along for me. There are a good section of our city where only 41 to 60% have access, and other areas 61 to 80%. And there are those clear areas, things are going much better, 81 to 100% access. Now, there's the map that I was talking about in those different shades of color, depending on the community, how much access to this internet you have. And when you look at it, it really falls within that wedge and crescent pattern we tend to see in Charlotte. The gray and the orange, those lower access areas that I just mentioned, are the same parts of Charlotte that are generally lower income, lower or higher poverty rates from 2014, pretty similar. These neighbors also usually have less access to grocery stores and they face education inequality. So getting access to computers and internet's not easy. And for children, it's out of their control. As Roberson says, it takes being proactive, not waiting until it's too late.
Kids only have one education, they only have one childhood, so it's our job to jump in and fix this immediately and not to take a sort of reactionary approach to this.
What's being done to tackle this issue? CMS says it's been doing a good job connecting students with technology. One of its biggest tools is a partnership with a nonprofit called Eliminate the Digital Divide, also known as E2D. It was started by Franny Millen and her family. Back in 2012, Franny noticed all her school assignments required a computer, so her family began finding laptops and refurbishing them to give to students. Turned into a full-blown effort. And right now, the team is working overtime to get computers out to CMS families.
We are still building computers 7 days a week, and we are still delivering computers as many as we possibly can. Unfortunately, the need right now in Charlotte is in the tens of thousands of computers, and we only have hundreds and hundreds.
Since 2013, about 12,000 families now have a computer because of Millen's organization. Incredible work they're doing. Something several other districts have tried is Wi-Fi buses. Caldwell County, for example, buses provide Wi-Fi to anyone within 3,000 to 4,000 feet of them. There are 31 buses parked throughout the county. Similar project going on in York County. School buses with internet are driven to parking lots in rural areas. Students meet the bus in the parking lot with their work, and oftentimes they stay there working for hours.
It's already a difficult time. They're not in the classroom at this time. Everything's so changing now to try to get some Wi-Fi to the kids to let them understand that we are helping them learn.
That is Christopher Dewberry. He drives the bus. He is also a school teacher. And teachers have also been crucial to all these efforts. Some may drive buses like Dewberry. Others are finding workarounds for their students. Wendy Tolbert is a second grade teacher at Starmount Elementary School. She's been using Zoom for most students, but she says she hasn't heard from one of her students since remote learning started. Several other students don't have computers or Wi-Fi, so she's using other apps to teach them, or she just hops on the telephone.
Most of the parents are very cooperative.
She says she just wants to make sure all of her students are learning in these difficult times, even if it means staying on a call longer or getting a little more creative. Remote learning has been hard for students, but for kids with special education needs, it takes a whole different toll. Federal law requires school districts to provide services like occupational therapy. But Lee Zurich of our National Investigative Team found some districts aren't able to meet that standard.
It's pretty overwhelming. It's very overwhelming. So, we've been through a lot as a family.
Homeschooling first grader Bennett Pellegrino requires 4 hands. Born with cerebral palsy and legally blind, Bennett's special education instruction includes physical, occupational, and speech therapy. While school is shut down during the COVID-19 pandemic, it's all done by his parents, who both work full-time.
I'm in a very challenging position trying to provide everything that my child needs. There are days that I just sit in my car and cry because I'm just not enough for him. My husband is not enough for him. Even together, we cannot do everything that he needs, and it can be very discouraging.
While the federal government typically enforces standards for special education students through federal law, remote learning for these students has been left up to school districts and states. We contacted 25 states and nearly 200 school districts to find out what guidance they were providing schools. That survey reveals the special education services students receive depend on where they live, which means states' approach to servicing special needs varies.
It is a big mess.
Val Antunes Cook is a school psychologist in Illinois. She says the pandemic has left some students behind with their services not meeting the standards required by federal law.
We have a few kiddos who are profoundly deaf and their families don't know sign, so they get no communication input, and it just hurts.
With the U.S. Department of Education issuing vague guidance, it's up to the states and school districts to follow a strict federal law. That's not physically possible.
Schools are in a very challenging position because they're being asked to provide something that right now is physically unsafe to do in person. And the lack of guidance that they have from the federal and state level, I think, is what's really impeding districts' ability to ensure that they can do what they need to do for their students. I just don't think they were prepared.
Are you worried your son's going to regress?
I know that I know he's regressing. So he's not as flexible as he was. So we're having to really stretch him in some really interesting ways. He walks in a gait trainer every day, and he's not walking nearly as far as he typically does.
It's our Lee Zurich reporting. Imagine how stressful that is for so many families, many of them right here in our community, seeing their children backslide as we get through this. The masks, gloves, and social distancing is something new for most of us through all this, but not for Noah Monroe. You see, he got a cancer diagnosis back in 8th grade. He loves sports, and those were taken away. A fear many high school athletes have tonight as well. Noah told our Nate Wimberly he has a message for you.
I mean, I wish it was a new experience for me having something taken away from me, but it's not, so I was kind of prepared for it.
COVID-19 has taken a lot from all of us. Concord senior Noah Monroe is no exception. But in the 8th grade, cancer almost took it all away from Noah.
Rhabdomyosarcoma, and it's pediatric cancer of the skeletal muscles.
The things he loved to do athletically, swimming and running, taken away due to chemotherapy. But when life hands you lemons, you make lemonade. He stayed with things academically, and he currently has a 4.5 GPA. He eventually got his leg strength back up enough to run cross country and swim. This past season, he was a captain on the swim team due to his fierce determination.
Having everything pretty much taken away from me, I knew that if it happened to me again, that I didn't want to leave anything on the table. I wanted to live every day like it was my last.
A great senior year, getting ready to hit the home stretch, and here comes COVID-19. Been down this road before, so time to make some more lemonade. No school because of the pandemic means more time with the family, and that's very important to him, as this fall he plans to head to UNC Chapel Hill to major in sports journalism, just like his dad. And even though it won't be the traditional way to get his diploma, Noah's looking forward to Concord High's drive-in, drive-through graduation at Charlotte Motor Speedway. And for student athletes who are unsure whether they will have an athletic season next year, Noah says, make it count if you do have one.
When you get to senior year, and if you're lucky enough to be able to go back to school physically, take every day like it might be the last one, because this COVID-19 situation, you never know when it could pop back up.
What a story. Noah, you are amazing. Best of luck as you become a Tar Heel. Of course, while classrooms are empty, so again are the playing fields, the courts, and the rinks. Spring sports were called off. So while teams may not be practicing or competing, they have found ways to keep playing from a distance. And Nate found one tennis team in South Carolina that kept lessons going online.
Before the ruling by the South Carolina High School League, I did stay in communication with the guys via Twitter mostly, and also text.
But spring sports teams in South Carolina were not allowed to gather in one place in the real world or virtually until today. The South Carolina High School League is now allowing teams to meet online in groups to work out.
Kids need to be active. Nobody disagree with that. If there's a chance for us to continue participation at some point, well, we don't want to start right back up and kids have been inactive for such a long period of time before we could actually begin. At no time would we endorse having kids gather together or coaches and kids gathering together. But if you can accommodate this from separate areas, then I think it's something that we need to explore.
We're going to do a short, sweet Zoom session for 15 minutes just for fun, just to keep them engaged and see how that plays out.
Today, the Northwestern tennis team gathered virtually to talk the service toss.
Raise your hand and then let go of the ball, and that's pretty much all you do is a toss.
For senior Adam Husted, these Zoom sessions and being among teammates again are helpful, but nothing can take the place of competing on that tennis court.
Even if it's just one match, just one final match, that'd be great. It's been real tough to just, kind of halt everything all of a sudden, especially with, senior year and all that. You're just, everything that you kind of wanted to finish out strong, you can't.
That's our Nate Wimberly reporting so many disappointments for so many young athletes across our area. Up next on Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost.
Just knowing that I've made another day and I'm able to be here and I can make some kind of change in the world, you know. So that keeps me going.
Graduation certainly not going as planned for our seniors, but they are staying positive. We're introducing you to 2 more high school seniors with incredible stories. Welcome back to Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost. As we mentioned earlier, it's graduation season. Certainly isn't all that our high school seniors hoped it would be. There are some, though, amazing stories of seniors here in our viewing area, and while we can't get to all of them, we do want to share a few more stories tonight. Here's Dedrick Russell with the story of super senior Haley Doctor.
Listen to the one word Haley Doctor used to describe her senior year.
Special. Because, you know, of course, we got our year taken away. I wanted to walk the stage.
Finishing high school was something Haley's mother instilled in her. Haley's mom was one of the 9 killed in the Mother Emanuel AME Church shooting.
Because I never experienced a real death. So when she passed away, I realized, you know, people are in our lives for a reason.
After the death, Haley moved to Charlotte with family to attend school. This year, she's graduating from Mallard Creek High School. She says her mom's death and this pandemic is a lesson for all.
Every moment you have with the loved one in your life, I would definitely take advantage of that time you have with them.
Through the pain, Haley persevered.
Not every day I want to get up and, you know, deal with life. But some days I had to push through and, you know, I walk around with a smile on my face.
And it's a smile that can light up a room. If you take a closer look at it, it will give you a clue about Haley Doctor's future.
When I was younger, I always wanted braces, and I've always been interested in teeth.
Her goal is to become an orthodontist. Despite the letdown of her senior year, Haley is still proud to be part of the class of 2020. She says there is now a bond her classmates will forever share as they go their separate ways. Haley is on her way to Columbia College on a basketball scholarship. It's the same school her mom attended.
Just knowing that I've made another day, and that I'm able to be here, and I can make some kind of change in the world, you know. So that keeps me going.
At Mallard Creek High, Dedrick Russell, WBTV, on your side.
Congratulations to Haley. Now, stretching beyond CMS, Dedrick also found a super senior in Union County. Kennedy Rowland's dream is to help others. She wants to be on the front lines, and she was inspired by her dad. Here's her story.
But Kennedy Rowland is a senior who can handle pressure. At 18, she is a volunteer firefighter for the Stallings Fire Department. She's one class away from becoming a full-time firefighter. She's following in her dad's footsteps. He was a lieutenant with the fire department.
I always wanted to go to the fire department, always. We were there Christmas, Thanksgiving, anytime that my dad was there, even when he wasn't there, I was like, can we please go, because I love the people.
Her father died when Kennedy was just in the 9th grade. She keeps his memory alive when opening her locker and putting on her helmet.
I always keep a picture in all my helmets I have.
This Sun Valley High School senior has already experienced a lot. Now the teenager is coping with a pandemic during her senior year. She says it's upsetting.
I was excited about prom. I bought my prom dress.
But she's handling the disappointment well.
There are things you have to just kind of accept, and I kind of just accepted it.
She admits it was hard to accept, but realized if she can handle fighting fires, she can confront a pandemic. This is her at a fire training exercise. She believes her job and background prepared her for life's challenges.
I've really been put in harder situations or situations you have to think, situations that you kind of have to be mentally prepared for, emotionally prepared for, that a lot of people wouldn't normally be doing at my age.
COVID-19 has caused communities to celebrate first responders more. Kennedy has seen that appreciation, and it has confirmed her career goals.
If I could be the first female chief here, that'd be awesome.
She may be off to college in the fall, but she has already learned a valuable lesson.
You don't take anything for granted.
In Indian Trail, Dedrick Russell, WBTV, on your side.
A brave young woman on so many levels. Dedrick, thank you. Now, besides these super seniors, we also have some superheroes and helpers in our schools. We're really leaning on our teachers right now, and they are going above and beyond. Like Will Losell, Doctors diagnosed Will with cancer back in March. Instead of taking leave, the father of two is still teaching during the pandemic, sometimes from his hospital bed.
It takes a long time for some of these students to build a trust with me. You know, that a lot of there are students who they want to push me away because they don't want to risk being disappointed again.
Will is a UNC Charlotte graduate. The school has dedicated a $2,500 student award in his honor. And just as exciting, his work ethic prompted a shout out by Ellen DeGeneres. That right there is Christopher Head. He is a social studies teacher at Piedmont Middle School. Head took his lesson about World War II to his backyard, where he used bags full of leaves to teach about trench warfare. Head wants his students to be engaged, and these videos are working for him.
If they're willing to watch it and laugh, and it stimulates them to actually want to participate and do the assignments and be more active during this time, you can't fight that.
The next video he planned on doing involved driving to the beach and acting out how soldiers came out of the water on D-Day. And teachers are known for being enthusiastic about learning and spreading positivity, and that's what Wendy Tolbert is doing. She teaches second grade at Starmount Elementary. It's a high-poverty school. Tolbert gets up around 7 each morning to prepare for class and works until about 4 in the evening. She loves what she does and says remote learning is giving her more opportunity to speak to parents, and she says that is a good thing. Thanks for watching Lessons Learned, Lessons Lost. We really do appreciate it. And congratulations again to all the graduates of 2020. Best of luck going forward. Appreciate you being here. Stay well, everyone.